Welcome to The Next Interview, a podcast about careers, life, and achieving our greatest potential. And now, here's your host, Doland White.
So welcome to The Next Interview. I am Doland White. As the announcer said, I am the host for this podcast. I'm honored today to be with my guest, John Kiss. And John and I have known each other now for a handful of years. Pretty much a handful of years, and have actually been in the trenches side by side, working on leadership issues and challenges and talking about leadership and co-mentoring and working together. So I'm honored to have him here. Truth is, one of the things that happens anytime that you are in the trenches side by side, and you're in the trenches side by side with really good people, is those people ultimately become a part of a relationship with you, and through that relationship evolve into a relationship with your family, right? Because we are not just our job. There is no work-life balance. There is
Right.
only life. So blessed to have you here. Now, I've talked about you and said, good stuff. But it's an opportunity, for those who don't know you and haven't had an opportunity to meet you, just if you wouldn't mind, just take a couple of minutes, or for as long as you would like to take. And we got a half hour here, and talk a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are, where you're from. It's an interesting story, and kind of where you are today, and the team that you lead, because you are a co-leader of a very successful company. So I'll quit talking and hand it to you.
Thank you so much, Doland. I love your podcast. I'm a listener of your podcast, and it's an honor
you.
for me to be here. It's also an honor for me to call you my friend, and maybe we'll talk about how our friendship was created. I think it can be really useful for the listeners and the viewers. So I am an author, and I am a co-founder of a book publishing company called Your Book Team. And originally, I come from Israel, which you can hear by my sweet, funny accent. My parents are from Russia, and they came to Israel following anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union. I was born in Israel, and ever since I was really young, I really liked stories. I enjoyed books. I was a geek, very introverted, very shy, and I found myself in books. And pretty soon I began writing books. When I was like in the fourth grade, I began writing long stories and sharing them in front of the class. And that was really the first time that I felt my identity forming. All of a sudden, this shy kid got some attention in the class, and the kids were all about wanting to hear what was next. And I learned about cliffhangers, and I learned about suspense, and kind of appeasing the clown of the class, and appeasing the sensitive girl, and appeasing everyone, trying to give something to every listener in the class. So later on, I just decided to make writing a career. And about a decade ago, I joined hands with a few editors who were, like me, very passionate about the book publishing industry and about the power of stories to change people's lives. And together we created Your Book Team. And the idea behind our company is that we are a boutique publisher of books, and we specialize on stories that really move people and can really improve people's lives. And we work as a team, and we have an international team. We publish wonderful books that I'm very proud of. Some of them are behind us, and some of them are here. And it's really nice. I love this job, and I'm also growing as an author, and I'm growing as a leader. So I love getting up in the morning, and I love doing my job.
Fun. I think that's one of the most important things when we're leading teams, and you're leading a team, and we're blessed and kind of even forced more into it because of our the ancient pandemic days that are now a couple of years behind us, right? Where we all had to go remote to really focus on, how do I how do I lead my team when we're not all sitting in the same room together and there's not a bunch, I called it prairie dogging back in the old days, where there were cubicles and people could like pop up and see who was in the room and who wasn't, like
Yes.
kind of like a bunch of prairie dogs, on the floors. And I remember the days of like hundreds of cubicles, in large companies, seeing that go on. But there's an art to it. One of the things that we've talked about is kind of your team, and I've been blessed to meet members of your team kind of in different circumstances over the last couple of years. Um, when I think one of the things that will help people, any leader or manager that's listening to the podcast, is kind of like when you look at, leading your team and everybody's got their projects and tasks, kind of your mindset and your frame of mind, kind of as you're working through projects and books and tracking time and, not the tactic side, but how you approach it with your team, kind of to build trust, right? So that your team is synchronized with you. You're synchronous in that. So I'll stop asking. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think I think leadership is a challenge, really, and I think it's something that we develop
Mhm.
over time. And assuming that you should have leadership skills early on, I think will set you up for failure. I constantly look at myself as an amateur when it comes to leadership, and I constantly ask for feedback. Just a couple of hours ago, I was speaking to my graphic
Mhm.
design director, and he was telling me, one of the things I learned from you, John, is how calm you are. And the fact, he did a mistake,
Mm.
and I saw that mistake, and I recorded to him something that he perceived as pretty calm. And I think that was huge. It was huge for me to hear that today, because just about a couple of years ago, I got feedback from one of my heads of HR, who was really telling me, you are agitated, you are nervous, you are harsh on people. And I really tried to take that feedback 2 years ago and really apply it. And sometimes I will have to put myself on mute and I will be like, and sometimes really I actually have to say, you guys, I have to take a minute, and then I will turn my camera off and I will be like
Yeah.
roaring, and then I'll come back relaxed. Because there will be mistakes. If you are a leader and you are trying to empower your team, they will make mistakes. And one of the things I learned from you, Doland, is creating a space where it's
Mm.
safe to make mistakes. If I want my team to grow, and if I want them to be able to do things that I'm doing right now, I need to allow them to make the same mistakes that I made. And I made so many mistakes, right, over the years. And it's
Yeah,
part
it's
of it.
interesting you say that, because I think, and thank you by the way for the tip of the hat there. But I think one of the things over the years that that happens as a leader, to kind of unpack a little bit about what you said, is you know probably one of the most important thing to be in being a leader, because we have custody of people and custody of lives and success. I mean, there's a lot that goes into all of that, and there are moments when it can be crushing. You feel like the project that you really wanted for your business didn't go through, and so you have anxiety and stress over payroll and what about and this and that, and you can, and when people make an error, right, because you're entrusting them to accomplish an outcome that has an impact on revenue or an impact on profitability, it's you you have to be in a position as a leader to trust them to do that. But I think even more importantly is you got to trust yourself first, right? You trust you to be able to do that, and you get to know your people. And there's a bunch of things we can, kind of get into that. This podcast isn't about me; this is about you. So, um, but I like that, because I think a great leader, one of the reasons why I hold you in one of the many reasons why I hold you in high regard, is because you do strive to progress. You just don't stay, this is how I do it, and I'm not going to change, which inevitably means it's a slow spiral to death, because everything around you changes.
Right.
So the fact that,
Right.
2 years ago you may have behaved in one way and your HR director called and said, so you're kind of whatever word that happens
Yeah.
to go, I kind of leave
Exactly
that word
right.
in other people's minds for the podcast. But to be able to kind of grow past that. So when this designer, made an error and you sent him the, kind of the corrections to it, did
But yeah.
he what next steps did you give him? So what were the next things for him to do?
So he was trying to save me time, and I think that was one of the things that I learned over the years is think of the intention when someone screws up. Think of their intention. His intention was pure. He was really trying to save me time, um, and in that specific case, there were no further instructions except for next time, just be
Mhm,
mindful of. It was really that simple. Um, we had another screw up on something else without it was not
mhm,
this person, it was my strategizing person. We sent a hardcover uh, to a client. The paperback looked fine, but the hardcover was off as far as the edges, and I gave my strategizing person a little bit of a hard time, and then said, how are you going to correct that?
great question.
So I tried to have him, yeah, I tried to have him come up with solutions rather than me solving solutions all the time. It's not empowering for people when you tell them what to do. It's more empowering when it comes out of them. So after a short conversation, he came up with 2 or 3 things, and I was like, okay, go ahead, green light, go ahead,
Mhm,
do them. To make sure that the client felt seen, respected. What we are very proud of in the company is a white glove service. We're not cheap, we're not necessarily affordable, but what we promise is that while with other publishers, you may feel unseen, or you might feel maybe um, treated as just another client. We promise that we will be your book team. We will be there for you. And when we fail there, when I sense that a client is not giving us like glowing review and loves us, then we quickly try you know to fix that, which it's very important for us. And I think that this is how we were able to grow over the years. We try to wow
mhm.
our customers. We try to overwhelm them with a wow, I'm getting much more than I ever paid for.
Yeah, I think that's way important, very important, and part of our experience. But it's interesting you mentioned that. I think it's a good opportunity for us to kind of pivot to a little bit around the conversation on how we actually met, kind of what happened in
Yes.
that process. And I'll let you tell the story from your side, and we'll hold the client's name in confidence. All of that stuff will stay in confidence. But I'd be very interested, just kind of in you sharing the story, because I think there's some lessons in this on both sides of the fence for those
So many.
delivering services and for those receiving services on what true partnerships look like and how to think about that structure and how you lead each other to success. So,
Yeah, there are so many lessons to unpack there. So yeah, let's dive into it. So a few years ago, one of my former clients said, I have a client friend, and this person really needs help. This person is an author, but they really need help
mhm,
PR wise, public relations. And we do public relations for authors. And I looked into it, and I saw that it was going to be a difficult journey because of some mistakes that
mhm,
that person did. The PR sucked. It was really bad, and there needed to be a whole overhaul of the strategy there. And I went and I met on Zoom that person, and we spoke and we reached some agreements, and I got the sense that my word or the advice of my team will
mhm,
be respected. And I even told that client, frankly, if you weren't introduced to me and to the team through this friend, I might have not taken you on because it's such a complicated PR issue. And we signed the contract. And then, unfortunately, pretty soon I saw that my emails were not being answered. The materials that I needed were not given. I asked for access to archives. I asked for all kinds of, and I was just ignored. This was when I began CCing all the people in this company that I had their address. I was being kind of Israeli, rude, outrageous. Like, you guys, you're trying to, you gave us this contract. We want to show you what we can do, but we need your collaboration. And I was really frustrated. And I think it was at that point that I wrote to that author saying, you know what, it's not going to work. We've been trying to get a hold of you for 2 months since we signed the contract. We were trying to really get this going. My team is eager to get things to you, but for that, we need your collaboration. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that we'll have to, just cancel the contract. And it was then that we were assigned this person called Doland to the project. And by then, I have to tell you, my experience has been negative. I was on my way out. My foot was in the door. And you said in an email, let's meet and let's discuss. And I was not into meeting and I was not into discussing. I felt like my time has been wasted, honestly. But from the first or second minute in that Zoom call when I joined you, and it was a few years ago, I remember, you were 100% disarming. And I think that's a huge lesson that I learned from you. You were not afraid to take the blame, although you were not involved in the project to begin with, but you immediately took the blame. You said, I have to tell you, John, to begin with, I'm terribly sorry for everything that happened to you. It's my fault. I'm sorry for that. I want to hear how I can correct it. And I'm writing it down. And I was like, you disarmed me. I was about to go on a rant, and I didn't have to go on a rant because you basically validated what I was about to say before I said that. And I think that was huge. And I think one of the things that I've learned from you over the years is being able to take the blame. Just a couple of days ago, it was 7 a.m. I was in a meeting with my team in Europe, and I saw that I blamed them for something that they did not do. So we have an editorial team and we have the HR. And people were, there was something that had to do with the editorial team, not with the HR. And I blamed the HR. And I went on the meeting with the HR team, and something like 3 times I apologized. It's not good enough. It's not good enough to apologize once. I apologized and I said, again, it's my apology. I blamed you for no reason. I take the blame. It was my responsibility. Please ignore the snarkiness, the snarky comments that I gave you. And because I repeated it 3 times, the HR had to say, oh, thank you, John, for saying that. I saw that it was meaningful. It improved the relationship. And that's one of the things that I learned from you, Doland, in just disarming me straight on. And the next great thing was that from that moment on, from the moment in which we ended the conversation trying to maybe date again, trying to give the relationship another chance, you totally delivered. So all of a sudden it was like night and day. The first 2 months with this company, with this client, was like night, and all of a sudden it became like day. You decided on a cadence. I have to tell you that word came from you. Now it's in my dictionary, but cadence came from Doland. You said, let's meet once a week. and you were always on time for the meeting. You said, I'm going to get you this and this and this by such and such date. So you really had measurable progress that we can measure. And you made sure that I got all of the materials. You even like you appointed someone to be the archive person that will scan and will upload, and a lot of things that we were waiting for. And all of a sudden we began getting them. And I think that 2 years later, we were able to really deliver a stellar PR result, something that people would have not imagined 2 years earlier
Right.
when we signed up with this author. And I think that was much thanks to the relationship that you and I developed, and meeting regularly once a week to make sure that we are
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah, it was fun. I
So
remember I
I
remember
learned a
that
lot.
call vividly, the first time I met you. And but I think it's, I think one of the things that there's a bunch of things to just take a minute or two just to unpack, some of those for those that,
Let's
the
do.
lessons in there. So it's not about Dolan. It's about if you're gonna be a leader accepts responsibility, and accepting responsibility means that when something goes sideways, you are willing to take it on your shoulders. When things go right, it has nothing to do with you. It is all your team. It is them. It's other people. It is all those other people. But when something goes bad, it's my shoulders. Nobody else owns it but me. I'll go fix it. And when you make the commitment to go fix it, it's the same. The process has always been. It's kind of clear, right? If you make a promise, you write it down, and you put a date and time associated with it, and it's got to be specific and it's got to be measurable. In a lot of cases, the measure is did you or did you not. It's just plain and simply that.
Very, very short. It's not a
Yeah,
long
did I or
story,
did I
right?
not? Or did you or did you not? And I think when you do that and you begin to build trust with the people that you're partnered with, because I think one of the things, another thing, will unpack a couple things out of this, and I have another question or two for you before we're out of time. But as you're kind of going through that, kind of at the very tail end, you let one sentence kind of slip through. And I want to point out to those that are listening to the podcast that one thing that John said was it took 2 years. It was
Yes.
not a solution to a PR challenge that we just went, oh, we'll just rewrite this and we'll send out some blah, 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 and we'll do a couple of podcasts and we'll be done. And it was over. It took 2 years, which is part and parcel why we ultimately ended up developing a relationship. And there were, without getting into other
Right.
things that were happening, in and around you at that time. So as
Right.
part of that process, as a leader, expect that when you're developing a relationship, your relationship is going to transcend past the project you were working on. If you're
Right.
only in it for the project, if you're only going to fish for that project, find someone else,
Right.
because there's no anticipate that you're going to build a long-term relationship and behave in that manner.
And behave in that manner because it's a small world. So if you mistreated someone, it's going to boomerang. That someone is going to be in the decision making power
Mhm.
10 years later. I've seen it. I've seen it in the book publishing world. You really want to try and leave the bridges
Yeah.
intact behind you. You don't want to burn them. And I think that one of the things that I feel very fortunate about with our relationship is not trying to. I feel like both of us are trying to
Mhm.
give, and not worry so much about what we are being given.
Right.
And I think that is something that has really worked for me. Like I received from you mentorship, and I was so happy to give you guys things that were outside of the scope of work that we
Mhm.
decided on the beginning. And I think that is a good lesson. Like trying to imagine that this person here that I'm working on right now, I'm going to this person is forever going to be in my life forever, and I'm going to make sure that everything I do, I can be examined later on, and I want to pass with flying colors. And I will tell you that the opposite of that is looking at a person and seeing dollar signs, or looking at a person and then thinking, it's going to be, I'm going to just, hand them over to another
Yeah,
person. Does
yeah.
that
Or
make sense?
what's in it for me? What?
Right. What's in
Right.
it for you? If I ask that, I'm in the
Yeah,
wrong
and I think
direction.
it's interesting you say that, John, because I think part of it is, when we're building these kinds of professional, and it not only is client to, business partner, because I viewed the relationship very intimate from a business perspective, because we were dealing with very sensitive things, right? To go help fix, and ultimately, kudos, because you were extremely successful at you just, not only did you guys do what you say you were going to do, you went way over the top of where you were supposed to be. But I think what happens is, when you're in those situations, is we have to remember, and you said this about your designer, what is the intention? And that no matter what you build into the relationship, good or bad, good or positive or negative, both will be amplified over time. So if it's good,
Yes.
it will
Yes.
be amplified onto to prosperity. It will be, and it's not about the prosperity is not about money. It's about being referred, having somebody say nice about you, doing a testimonial, helping you with a problem you have in your business. There's an amplification there. And then there's an amplification with negative. It's like going to a bad restaurant that brings you food that you in horrible service, and you kind of go, you instantly amplify it. You amplify it into, I'm not only am I not eating this, but I'm going to pay my bill and I'm out of here, and I'm going to tell the next 50 people I wouldn't eat there. And it's simple example, because I'm old and gray hair. I need simplicity in my life. But but
You're so
but I
funny.
think there's always an amplification that comes along with that, and the amplification ends up with relationship, ends up into trust. True definition of trust, because trust in my mind is giving without expectation. I'm going to trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm going to give this without expectation, and be here to
Yeah.
support you through that
Yeah. And I
process. And
think,
that's in my mind, that's the amplification of trust. Um, One of the things that you
yeah.
did very well, and I'll tell just a kind of a side story to it, that you did very well, that you didn't touch on, and I would encourage any leader listening to the podcast to remember that it's okay to be stupid. One of the things that John and I talked about early on was, I got nothing. I know nothing about, I don't know how this works. I don't know what it does. I have no idea. Can you teach me? In the reciprocal to, there was a reciprocal action that occurred there with, the act on behalf to get you what you needed to do your job, or get your team job, was to help me understand why, which is the for the sake of what? How does it work? What are we doing? Why does it matter? Why can't we just go higher? So I want to make sure there's a reciprocal side to this story that you didn't touch on,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
that the true definition of a partner is, there is no line in the middle of the screen when you're really truly in a partnership with your business, because what you do to impact that business and what that business does to impact your business clearly go hand in hand, and they amplify, long, long, long time. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I would like to celebrate what you just said. I was flabbergasted that you, who were in a very high position running a company of
mhm.
multi-million dollars, you were able to say, I know nothing. You, John, you and your team, you guys are the experts. Teach me. And yeah, it touched upon
Yeah,
Wikipedia,
yeah,
but it also touched upon general aspects of
yeah,
publishing, and
yeah.
general aspects of public opinion, and general aspects of the difference between written media and podcasts. And there was a lot to teach. And you were I was really impressed because you were like a little kid who is excited to learn. And really, in my entire career, it's hard for me to think of someone who was so eager and so curious to learn. And through that, I felt that you were able to better represent us to the
Mm.
company at large. You understood us, you put yourself in our shoes, and ultimately you put yourself in the public shoes, right? And that's what really helped on the public relations project. For that project, I was so impressed with how unafraid you were to appear stupid. And I think that that's
Yeah.
something that I'm learning again and again. Sometimes I go to the room, I just met with the CPA of the company, and I was like, honestly, I don't know. You are the expert. Teach me. Can you share your screen? And I saw that she was like, oh, wow, of course. And then she got QuickBooks Bonanza. She was like, she was so happy.
First, I'm
And
sorry
and
that
I
happened, but
and
anyway.
I it's your fault. It's your fault. But honestly, like I saw a spark in her eyes, seeing that she was respected for her expertise, and that's a
Yeah.
gift that you've given me and to my team. And I remember, and maybe I'll end with that. That one of the things that you did that really made you guys as a client stand out out of many other clients, you sent video recordings to the team saying, hey, team, you don't know me, but my name is Doland. I represent this company, and we really appreciate your hard work. And I was able to send it to the team around the world, and they felt seen. They felt that their work, their translations, their different, the connections that they were trying to establish, that it was all worth it more than the money, because there was another client in the other side who was more than a client, who was really a friend. And I think that that's one of the reasons I'm looming all the time. All the time I create loom
Yeah.
messages to my team, and that's one of the things that
I
I
do
learned
too.
from
I've got
you.
a hot link to Loom on my desktop all the time.
Right? Me too.
I,
I'm
I
looming
send
away
email
every
looms all
day.
the time. Every time I click go, I wonder, are they tired of seeing me? Um,
Yes, exactly,
are
me
they just
too.
man, another loom from that old guy? Oh God. No, but I think it's true. I think,
Oh my God.
the nature of who we are as people, and there's lots of scientific studies, and I won't quote percent, statistics, and 85% of people, blah blah blah. Forget it. But people and leaders, managers, whatever we are within the categories of kind of our roles in any organization, with any team, or in our family, all this transcends everything that we do in business. We as a species appreciate recognition, but the recognition can't just be blowing blue smoke up somebody's butt. It's founded in, hey, I respect you for what you did. Let me tell you what you did that you may not have been aware of, and the outcome of that was, and hey, thanks. And it's that duality of, like with you with the designer, to kind of go back to say, hey, next time be aware of that, right? He'll be aware of it next time, right? Because of the way you kind of said, okay, we
Mm-hmm.
got it this time. Next time, just be cognizant of this thing that you got to go do, right? And it's the same sort of thing, I think, in both those messages to people, is to be clear. Here's why I'm sending you this message. Here's what we did, and here's the outcome of it. And there's, whether it's positive or negative, but people appreciate recognition, and they appreciate candor. If I've messed up, call me. Don't let Debbie down the hall come wandering and going, oh, by the way, Dolan thinks you're a jerk. And, I just talked to him, and he said, call him, take it head on, go do that, have that conversation.
Right,
Um,
right,
so
right.
we are at the cap of this podcast. This podcast is always intended to give people an opportunity to hear, and thank you for the insights and the things that you've shared. Um,
This is so fun. I love talking. I'll come any day. You
well,
tell me what you want. I'll come to talk to
there's
you.
more.
I
There's
love
other
talking to
topics
you.
I want to talk about with you, but um, as we kind of are wrapping this down, there's a couple of things that I do want to lean in maybe just for a couple of moments. And that again is to pronounce the fact that because of the co-leadership, it wasn't my leadership, it was co-leadership, how we partnered together and how we each led separate teams to accomplish a common outcome, right? Because you didn't work for me and I didn't work for you. We had to co-lead teams and come together as leaders to accomplish our outcome. That those kinds of things can be done. We won't talk about politics. Those things can be done. Just got to go do that. The first is I'm no longer associated with that company. I haven't been for quite a while. And our relationship transcends past that point in time. So I'm grateful for that. But a thank you for the effort again, for your effort and for the team and for the things that went on to succeed there. What I want, just one question maybe, and then we'll talk about one more topic, is, there were successes. There were some successes and some defeats through the PR process because it was very complex and very long.
Right.
Kind of it's one thing to evolve a leader, but it's incumbent on leaders to evolve their team. And through this process, what one or two things through the behaviors that came out of this, you talk about your shift in the last couple of years, have trickled down into your team that have adjusted the way they think, the way they do? Have you reduced fear? Are they more willing to lean in? And not to feed things to you, but that's kind of the goal of leadership, is to help other people be leaders so that you're not leading them. They lead themselves.
So the greatest source of joy for me is not even the books and not even the PR results and the sales. It's seeing people that came into the company timid, geeks like myself, who were literally shaking from speaking and constantly putting themselves on mute, constantly, and seeing them leading teams. And sometimes it takes years, sometimes months, but seeing someone, and you remember how they were when they came, and seeing them speaking and leading a team and giving feedback and owning the stage, I think for me that has been a huge source of joy. And it's one of those things that I've learned not to gamble on. Sometimes there will be someone that I think that they will rise to be a great leader, and actually they leave after half a year. And sometimes there will be someone that I'll be like, oh, this person, there is no chance in the world. And lo and behold, a year later, they just
Wow.
blossom. And yeah, and I think for me, that has been the greatest gift, seeing that we're all people, we're all growing, we're all in different stages of this evolution called life, and just giving a hand to someone who is wanting to grow and giving them a tip here and there and support here and there and seeing them grow, it's a huge source of pride for me and great joy.
Great statement and great closing point. Now, I'm gonna ask for two things. The very first thing is, if and it'll be in the show notes and it'll be included with the podcast. It'll be in the YouTube notes and it'll be in Apple and blah blah blah. But kind of, if people, uh, you're you're very good at what you do, and people have a desire. Hey, I'm going to write a book, and they want to go, and they have no idea what the hell to do about it. If someone wants to reach out to you, just to learn more, whether something comes out of it or not, but if they want to know more, how can people find you?
So the intention behind the company is for us to be your book team. And this name was chosen by our people, by our clients, Your Book Team. Yourbookteam.com is where you can find us. And we love what we do. We love consulting for free and encouraging people on this journey. I've seen the way that you are blossoming, Doland, becoming an author, putting your first book on Amazon, as short as it may be, high quality. And I'm excited to see how you unfold and how I myself am unfolding with your guidance and your enthusiasm. And your accountability. So I think that there is a lot of room in the world for narratives, for books, for stories. Just like we're sharing right now, there's a lot of room in the world for us to share our stories, whether fiction or nonfiction. And your book team, it's our goal to make it effortless, to make it really easy. And that's our mission. And I just love the
Great.
work that we do.
Thank you for that. And so one last thing before I close the podcast and give my closing statement is a shameless plug for your book that you just released. The title of your book is
Under the Floorboards.
and it's available on Amazon today. I did receive a note from John that the book had been published. I hopefully bought the first copy. I want the first digital copy, certified digital copy, and started the book. Had to put it down because I want to be able to read it with my undivided, focused attention. It's an excellent read. It's a great story. I would encourage anybody listening to the podcast, go get this book. And if for any reason you buy this book and you don't like this book, send me an email and I'll give you your money back. I personally will send you a check, but I will challenge you guys to do that. The last thing is, hey, look, if you like the information that we talked about, and the intention for this podcast is to be a source of conversation around leadership, and the topics change podcast to podcast. Sometimes it's me, and sometimes it's me with a guest. Blessed to have you here, John. And if you like the podcast, give it a like, a share, follow us on YouTube. Please do that. Do all of those things. And more importantly is if you heard something in here that resonated with you as a leader, or if you know somebody who is a leader and they're suffering with stress or anxiety about the role that they are in, share this podcast with them. The intention for the podcast is not fan base. The intention for the podcast is to help other people be the best possible leader they can be. So go help them. Give it out to 2 people. Thanks for listening. I'm Dolan. Thank you, John. Grateful for having you here. See you guys in the next episode.
You've been listening to The Next Interview. For more information about today's guest, be sure to visit the show notes. If you enjoyed the show, give us a follow and be sure to join us here on The Next Interview.